One of the most unexpectedly funniest moments in the Punisher comics is when he catfishes as a little girl online to catch and eliminate predators. This image of this big, burly man hunched over a keyboard, typing like a little girl is hilarious and absurd. I once saw a Reddit comment that said, "This is probably Frank's idea of downtime." It's funny because it's true. When the Punisher isn't blowing up drug labs or gunning down gang leaders, he's probably tracking child predators, sort of like a side quest for him. And that's why I love this character. That's why I believe a lot of people love him. Frank Castle is more than just a man with a vendetta. Yes, he's waging a one-man war on crime. Yes, he's willing to torture and kill criminals with really sadistic methods. But he's not just doing it out of rage or bloodlust. Frank is driven by a deep sense of justice, and how he acts upon this truly comes alive when he's protecting the vulnerable. For example, in a story from the Punisher Max comics, Frank finds out about a couple who film and sell explicit videos of their own children. He doesn't hesitate, tracks them down, confronts them, and executes them on the spot. But what really stands out in this story isn't the punishment, but it's his reaction afterwards. As he's leaving the scene, Frank reflects upon how damaged those children must be. He expresses sorrow and cynicism, wondering if those boys will grow up to repeat the cycle of abuse. What makes Frank such a compelling character is that he doesn't always respond with violence. At least not directly. Sometimes protecting someone means giving them a way out instead of just delivering punishment. When Frank sees a young girl working the street with a pimp, he notices that the girl could be underage and likely being exploited, possibly addicted to certain substances. Pimps often use addiction as a leash, keeping girls dependent on them so they can't leave. Frank doesn't shoot the pimp on the spot. Instead, he threatens him and then gives the girl enough money to get out, to go back to her hometown and start over. It's not much, but it's more than what most people would do. He saw someone heading down a dark path and gave her a lifeline. Moments like these reveal a side of the Punisher that rarely gets talked about. This man who is responsible for the deaths of probably thousands of people at this point also has a deep obligation to protect the powerless. There's another scene also from the Punisher Max comics, where Frank saves a young girl from men who had been experimenting on her. After rescuing her, he crouches down to her level and says, "If anyone else tries to be mean to you, I'll be much meaner to them." It's such a Frank thing to say. It's threatening but oddly reassuring. He also gently tells her to close her eyes, shielding her from the carnage he's about to unleash on the people who hurt her. People often misunderstand Frank Castle. They see him as this one-dimensional, cold-blooded killer whose only goal is to execute criminals in the most brutal way possible. And sure, there is truth to that. He is violent, he does kill without remorse, but that doesn't mean he's void of humanity. If all Frank wanted to do was punish the guilty, he wouldn't bother with things like comforting a frightened child. He wouldn't take the time to help trafficked women escape their abusers. He wouldn't feel sympathy for the children who were abused by their parents. These moments where he feels protective of people who cannot defend themselves show you what really drives him. And what drives him is to be a protector. One of the darkest and most powerful arcs in the Punisher Max series is the Slavers. In this story, Frank uncovers and destroys a massive human trafficking operation in New York. But what makes this arc stand out isn't just the violence, it's Frank's fury. He rescues a woman from a small group of traffickers. When she tells him her story after being rescued, how her family abandoned her, how she was forced into slavery, how the traffickers treated her, you can see his anger building with every word. The imagery of zooming into the skull on Frank's t-shirt really shows us how pissed off he got. It's almost as if the skull was possessing Frank. And what's so striking is that his anger doesn't come from some selfish reason. It comes from sympathy. Frank sees this woman as a real human being who has suffered in unimaginable ways, and he takes that suffering personally. The more the woman tells him about her suffering, the more pissed off he got. By the end of the arc, Frank wipes out every last person involved in the trafficking ring. There's instances in this story where his hatred for these traffickers get the best of him, like when he initiates a shootout to kill the ringleader instead of being patient and calculated, simply because he just wants the man dead. He's not just punishing predatory criminals, he's avenging victims. Frank Castle, as the Punisher, may engage in horrific acts of violence. He can appear as a monster, especially to criminals, but this is all a means to protect the innocent. Child abusers and human traffickers spit on the sacred image of the family, something that was stolen from Frank. That's why he takes these crimes so personally. His war on crime was born from the agony of failing to protect his own loved ones. In punishing those who prey on the powerless, Frank isn't just seeking vengeance. He's trying to make the world safer for the vulnerable and the innocent. He is driven by an unwavering need to protect what he lost. In the end, Frank Castle is not just a punisher, he is a protector.